pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. Is there anyone else present that plans to record? Great. Okay, before we start, Al would like to say a few words.
Yes, I'd like to request a moment of silence. Some of you may have seen that Gail Safaris passed away this week. She was a longtime employee in the district and ended her career at Chelmsford High School, and was much loved by a large portion of the population there. She met a need that some other people weren't able to do. So she's a great person, and if we could just join in a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, first item of business tonight is approval of the minutes from our last meeting on October 16th. So if everybody's had a chance to look at them, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of October 16th.
Second.
Okay, any corrections? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? 4-0. Next up, we have our Chelmsford High School student representatives.
Veterans Day will be observed next Monday, and all of the students will have it off. Next week, MCAS retest will be happening all week at the high school, and mentors will be meeting with their freshmen Wednesday the 14th.
Fiddler on the Roof will premiere November 15th, 16th, and 17th in the PAC at the high school, and tickets are on sale now online. Fall Sports Awards are going to be November 19th, and Spirit Week will start November 19th and go to the 21st.
Okay, any other good news?
Good news. So a couple of things. There was some great celebrations for Halloween with the Boo Bash at one of our elementary schools. I did have a chance to go around to the elementary schools. All the students were working on their pumpkin math, and that included the connection to literature as well as mathematics and the science portion of it with a lot of parent helpers. So that was just a nice, fun week for the students. One of the other things today, we're just finishing up our full-day professional development day, monumental task. It's a multi-district piece, and we had 27 school districts with 2,200 registrations and 5 sites, one of them being Chelmsford High School. We were also running an ed camp for other teachers that were in the district in-house, and that was another 200 people. So Chelmsford had close to 1,000 people in the district today. And I have to thank our custodians. I have to thank Chelmsford Telemedia. I have to thank our technology department. I mean, outstanding work and just a lot of people, but some really great things that happened.
Anybody else have anything?
I'd just like to bring up the financial literacy fair at the high school. It was last week, and this year Jean Darc provided much of the material and personnel to run that, and I was there for a while, and I think it's a great exercise. For those of you not familiar with it, the kids role play. They're given an income of $20,000 to maybe $150,000, and they have to go around and plan for housing, car, insurance, and all those things. So it's a very practical experience. Thanks.
Anybody else? I just wanted to mention, being an ex-field hockey coach, that Chelmsford High School field hockey is still in the tournament, and I think they play tomorrow night, if I'm not mistaken, in Reading in the semifinals, sectional semifinals, so good luck to them. Okay, let's see. Next up, public comment. If anyone would like to speak to the committee about any of the items on tonight's agenda, please come forward, state your name and address for the recording secretary. Okay, moving on then.
All right, moving on. We're actually going to take 2 of the new business items out of order this evening. So the first one we're actually going to announce is number 2. So before you this evening, we actually have Lorraine Wilson. Lorraine is going to come on board in early December as our new coordinator for social emotional learning and school counseling services. If you recall, over the very mid part of the summer, Tom Wright, who was our former coordinator for guidance services, had resigned to take a job in another district as a building administrator. He wanted to pursue getting into school leadership. And that left us with an opening. So we were able to kind of take a look at that job, retooled a little bit to work on some of our, as you know, our second overarching goal in the district is really working on social emotional learning and promoting students' academic success, but at the same time, really taking a look at the whole child and looking at their social, emotional health and well-being at the same time. So we revamped that job a little bit. We had advertised through a couple of different rounds, really looking for the right person to join our team, and I'm very pleased to announce this evening that Lorraine is going to be joining us in early December. So I'd love to invite you to come on up and introduce yourself. Lorraine actually comes to us from, most recently, she's at the Cotting School in Lexington right now. Prior to that, she had worked at a school partnership between Boston College and the Boston Public Schools, and earlier on in her career was a school counselor as well. So welcome to the district. Love you to, again, just kind of say a few words, and we're looking forward to you starting in December.
Sure. So as Jay said, my name is Lorraine Wilson. I'm just absolutely thrilled to be joining you tonight and also to be joining the Chelmsford Public Schools. I really felt like that it was a great match and a great timing for me, personally and professionally, to be able to use my background in school counseling and my background in administration and sort of marry those two things together. And I was so impressed in hearing all of the wonderful work that Chelmsford is doing around social and emotional learning and making it such a priority for students. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to joining you on December 3rd.
Anybody have any questions?
All right. Lorraine, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to starting with you after Thanksgiving as well.
Great, thank you for
Welcome aboard.
having me.
Thank you. May I jump back in for just a minute? I'm sorry, because I'm tired, I'm forgetful. I forgot about all of our student reps that helped us today. That included 20 Parker students to help usher around all of our teachers that came from different districts, including in-house, and as well as all the students that were helping us at the high school.
Linda may just interject with good news throughout the
Yeah,
meeting.
let's jump in.
Keep us going. All right. Second up on the agenda this evening is Spotlight on the Schools. So if you recall, at each of our school committee meetings over the course of this year, we're either going to highlight one of our individual schools or one of our departments. So this evening, we have Center Elementary School, Principal Diana Fullreader. Would love to invite you up with your staff and students that are here this evening, and to tell us a little bit about the work that's taking place at Center this year. Feel free to pull some chairs up. I will get your presentation up for you.
Guess whoever is speaking, if they could just speak in the mics, that would just help people at home.
Want the cushy chairs? You guys have the cushy chair.
So this was a good tie-in because we were talking about social emotional learning and how important it is in the district. And that is certainly one of our major goals at Center School this year as well. I have to say, this is my second year at Center, and the thing that I feel so fortunate about every day I go into school is the people that I'm surrounded by. And with this goal, it really takes everyone in the district working, or at the school working together, the students, the parents, and our staff members all collaborating to succeed with this goal. So I want to introduce some of our people from Center here. Colleen Marino is one of our parents, and she's our enrichment coordinator.
Nope, I'm the vice president this year.
Oh, vice
I'm
president.
Here for Hillary.
Okay, right. But you helped with that last year
Yes,
as well, which
yeah.
was a challenging task last year because we had snow day
So
after
many
snow
snow
day.
days.
So she had to
Scheduling.
reschedule everything. So she's going to talk a little bit about how that ties in to our goal as well. And we have Shane, and he's one of our 4th grade students. And Rusha, another one of our 4th grade students. And we have Mary Ellen Olson, one of our 4th grade teachers, and she's one of our new PBIS coaches this year. So we're thrilled to have that critical role at the school, and thrilled to have her in that role. And Mr. Romalo, lots of background in PBIS as well, and again, critical role, and thrilled to have assistant principals at Center School, and he's been a wonderful addition. And Katie Kalaporis, and she is also one of our co-presidents this year.
Excuse me, Diane.
Yes.
I'm getting texts from people at home, they can barely hear you.
Oh,
So if you could
okay.
speak into the microphone a
You
little
should
bit.
teach your voice.
Should I reintroduce people, or are we good?
No.
Okay. Sorry about that. So our goal is to support the social emotional learning of all students, and we're really focusing on Tier 1 supports. And what that means is that's educating all the students and explicitly teaching expected behaviors and reinforcing positive pro-social behaviors. Last year we did a lot of work to come up with our kind of school motto that kind of ties it all together, and what we came up with was to show your pride by being safe and ready. So that was pretty critical. So this year, one of the things that we're focusing on are self-management and self-awareness. Those are two of the social emotional learning core competencies, and we'll talk a little bit about how the different things we're doing are tying into that. Okay. Second Step is a program that we've been using as a curriculum for social emotional learning, and our PD day that we had prior to this one today was all focused on Second Step, and we were able to watch some videos and use the materials and see how we can incorporate that into learning. Pride is also a big piece of it, which is district-wide, and I'll let the students talk about that some more, and PBIS, which Ms. Olson and Mr. Romalo will talk about. So we are going to start with our students, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about pride and what pride is. I may have skipped around on my slides, so.
Can we go back that way?
No, go forward, but I think I might have, yep, can we skip to, and then we'll go back to, there we go. All right. Rusha.
So I'm going to talk about pride, and the P in pride stands for perseverance, and the R in pride stands for respect, and the D in pride stands for dedication, and the E in pride stands for empathy. And one example of perseverance is like if you're doing a math problem like 5 times 7 and you don't know what it is, just try your best no matter how hard it is.
Shane, do you want to share about integrity?
So integrity is to show what's right even when nobody's watching, and you should do that every day.
Shane is also a member of our student council this year, and I thought I'd give him a few minutes to talk about what the student council will be doing this year.
So we're gonna be doing we're gonna do first we talked about being a leader and how to show that, and then we talked about Spirit Days. We're gonna ask people about what they think. So mostly the 4th graders, but we're gonna also talk about the other kids too, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade, and kindergarten. And then the next meeting the most votes the most votes we get are gonna be the next Spirit Day we're gonna have. And the same thing for we're doing kindness. That's the same thing for that too.
Great. So we're excited for some of those activities that we're going to be doing. We've been doing a lot with students to teach, like I said, to teach expected behaviors. So we've had conversations out on the playground and teaching expectations on the bus. And I wanted the students to share what they've learned about being ready and safe, showing their pride by being ready and safe. Can you talk about that?
So by being ready and safe, like for example, if you're on the bus, you need to be ready for your stop. Like you don't want to miss your stop. And by being safe, you have to be at a level 2 or below because the bus driver needs to concentrate on where she's going so she doesn't miss any stop. Nothing happens.
And Shane, what have you learned at recess to be ready and safe at recess?
So at recess, say you're playing football, the rules for football are 2-finger touch, and so you don't hurt anybody, and also for football, you're gonna we usually have like soft footballs, squishy footballs, but sometimes some kids bring other footballs, and the teachers have to check if it's soft enough, so it won't hurt you, or something like that.
And how about problem solving at
So if you need a problem solve, you should do rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Right. So we thought, in case you haven't played for a long time, and there might be times where you have to solve a problem here on the school committee, that you should know how to play rock, paper, scissors. So they're going to show you really quickly how to play rock, paper, scissors. So you should find someone next to you, and you can partner up with them, and you can play around.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
So you
Rock.
have to tell them what wins, because they may not know yet.
So, if scissors beats paper, rock beats scissors, and paper beats rock.
So it really is a paper beats rock because it covers the rock. So, and oftentimes you will see kids out on the playground, and now they'll play on the bus and even in class using this to solve problems. And we do talk to them about, if it's a little problem, this is a great way to solve it, and it's also fun. So it's great that they're picking up some of these good strategies. Anything else you guys want to say that we didn't talk about?
Pretty much it.
Can we ask a question?
Yes.
So Shane, have you had any spirit days yet?
Spirit days, we had, we had a few.
And what was your favorite one so
We
far?
had, we had Red Sox Day.
Yeah. Good one.
Thank you.
I think we had, I can't remember any more, but.
Well, you know, Red Sox was probably the most
That's a big
important
one.
one.
Yeah, that was huge.
Thank you.
Anything else you wanted to say? No? Okay. Do you mind if we go back again?
No, you tell me where to stop.
Yeah, parent, there we go. As I mentioned, we have an amazing PTO at Center School, and whenever we are coming up with ideas, they are always very, very, very supportive. Katie, you want to talk a little bit about our summer project that we did with our homeschool connection?
Pretty amazing. Those
You have to talk in the mic.
I'm pretty loud, so I think they can hear me. This kindergarten class that came in this summer, Diane had a great idea of giving each kindergarten student coming in a book that said A Night Before Kindergarten. I believe you signed it to every student, which is pretty amazing. The kindergarten teachers came in and helped as well. And we all at PTO helped deliver the books to each kindergarten student that was coming in. It was a great way to build community, great way for them to get to know either their teacher or principal or someone they might recognize when they come into school. And you should see their faces when, either, some slammed in the door going, who are you? But most of them were very welcoming, very excited. And it was just a great way to just build Chelmsford community and also Center community, and it has helped. I mean, they are all in as kindergarten parents, and I couldn't be more proud of the principal because it was more of her idea than ours, but it was just a great idea. We ran with it, and I think we'll continue to do that every year.
But just have to say, those things are not possible without our PTO. They purchased all the books for us and helped us with that, and it was awesome. Just relationships are the key for anything with social emotional learning, and I do think that went a long way, and we've had a lot of involvement from our kindergarten parents from the get-go. And I do think when we delivered the books, we had a letter from the PTO that had events that were coming up and gave them some information, and I felt like parents felt and families felt included from the get-go, which was really nice, so that was wonderful. Enrichment is another thing that our PTO has been doing to support our social emotional learning. Want to talk about that?
So last year I was the enrichment coordinator. We have two fantastic enrichment coordinators who just couldn't be here tonight, Tina Berglund and Hillary Spagnardi. And we have, as Diana said, our parent support is really phenomenal at Center School, from volunteering to fundraising. We just have a really generous, giving, helpful school parent community. And because of that, we're able to offer a ton of great enrichments, like in-house field trips. So some of them are more curriculum driven. We have pilgrims coming in to visit the 1st and 2nd grade from Plymouth Plantation. We do have the Acton Discovery Museums come in to all of the grades and do a presentation and kind of a workshop based on whatever topic the grade is working on at that time. But we also do a fair amount of enrichments that are just more community building and character building enrichments. So this year we had Brian Chevalier, who came in at the beginning of the year, and he does a lot of fun character building, kind of, small skits and songs with the kids. My 2 kids were very excited to be chosen as volunteers with him this year, and they did silly dances, and it just kind of helps. We do something like that at the beginning of the year because it just kind of helps break the ice. It brings everybody together, and everybody gets the chance to be silly and have fun, but also learn a lot about, themselves and, and their friends and differences and all those fun things. In the past, we've had Johnny the K come in, and he also does a very similar character building type of performance for them. But we also bring in some enrichments that kind of tie the academic and the fun part together. So we do have an actress who comes in as Helen Keller every year, and she is a great example of, perseverance, and it comes at the time that the second graders are learning about Helen Keller. We have Ben Franklin, a Ben Franklin actor, come in, and he's a great, integrity, example of integrity. We have, who else was I thinking off the top of my head? Ben Franklin. Oh, authors. We do author visits, and we have authors come in for several of the grades, and they really talk about not just the book that they've written, but the writing process with all of the students, which, again, is a great example of, kind of figuring out how to get what's in here out there, working through it, the steps that they take, but also really, letting them know that they are all worthy and potential authors. No one's idea is better than anyone else's. They're all good ideas coming out. So we are very purposeful in the enrichments that we bring in, and we're very fortunate to be able to bring in a good amount. Every grade gets, we try to share the wealth. Every grade gets a few that really tie in with that social emotional piece, the character building piece, our Pride initiative, and the academic piece as well.
Which way do you want me to go?
Yep. Here. So as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot with our staff around PBIS and Second Step. And we can go to the next slide, and I'll let Mr. Romalo and Ms. Olson talk about some of the things we've been doing with PBIS. And I may pass around some of our things that we've been working on. I'll pass them each way.
So the PBIS committee has been very busy. The first thing that's coming around was kind of our first piece in the puzzle, and it's a matrix that identifies our core values. Show your pride by being ready and safe is language that we use with the kids, and it's very important to use common language throughout the building from kindergarten through 4th grade, and we build upon it. So the matrix identifies what are the expected behaviors in each area, that how you show your pride, and with the emphasis on pride of respect, and how do they show they're ready. And we talk about not just being physically ready, but your body's ready to learn, and being safe. And so with that, with the matrix, now one of our next step in kind of that action is to isolate individual settings and really push those areas. So it may sound simple, but bathroom in elementary school is often an area of an issue. So it's a simple message: go, flush, wash, leave. You shouldn't be in there very long. So that's one area we really focused our attention. And we were using that same language throughout the school. These signs are hanging in the bathroom. The signs are hanging in many of the classrooms where a student might sign out, just as a reminder. So there's that. We try and keep the sign simple, not too much, with a picture and simple words so they get the message. This is what they should be doing at the end of recess. They hear the whistle. They need to line up, be quiet so they can listen for instructions and walk. And I have a classroom that's right out by where the kids line up, and I've now recently have seen kids actually holding these signs up as they walk from recess to the cafeteria. So it's a visual to remind them why they're outside, and they know what's expected of them. And that's why we keep the language consistent, and it's a common message.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing with PBIS, and I think Diana highlighted it as well, is, it really is everybody. It's our whole school community. And it's really important for kids, as Ms. Olson said, to really go over the expectations, for teachers to go over what's expected, so students really know how to respond. And I think a lot of these visuals and signs and things that we're trying to do really allows students the tools to be successful. And approaching behavior in a positive, proactive way versus a punitive way. So we're looking this year to look at an incentive type program for kids to feel good about demonstrating the right thing. So we have a lot of things on our action plan this year to kind of accomplish and pilot to really focus on the positive way of approaching behavior. I think PBIS also comes together with our school culture, our school climate, our overall staff. So, and it does take a team, parents, staff, and students to pull it all off.
Which way are we going?
Those were some more of our signs.
These are the visuals that we have that kind of accompany what we've started to use so far when it comes to our expectations. And this is a big product that we're very proud of, which is our overall school matrix that Ms. Olson talked about. That really highlights all the different areas in our building and what's expected.
Anybody have any questions?
Can I have one of those signs for my kids at home?
Sure. Bathroom one, yeah, I think.
We have extras.
bathroom one.
Hang it up. It is great because you can go in, and when you hear people talking or laughing or doing other things in the bathroom, we can say, is it on the sign? No, is it one of these items? It's amazing what we spend time doing.
This is gonna go up, I'm gonna,
Yeah, and it's not lost on the kids
Right.
too,
No.
just
Right.
add, I mean, I have a kindergartner and a second grader, and the whole world of school is kind of new to my kindergartner, the whole, big school thing. But they were so funny, before the Brian Chevalier performance, they were like, well, we had an assembly today. They're like, but then we had an assembly before the assembly where Mrs. Fullreader and Mr. Ramallo told us, we talked about the expectations. And so it's not getting lost on them either, that it's being reviewed with them and that it's being, intentionally taught to them. And now they know to expect that. But they were so funny. They're like, well, we had an assembly, but then we had an assembly before the assembly to learn how to act at the assembly. And it's just so funny that, going on the bus and all those things have really been, the supports that we're hearing at home about what's being done is really, really great.
And it all comes back to really, it's that full circle piece, right? We can't expect our students to know how to act in an assembly type style event, right? You're picturing a bunch of kids coming to one place. We need to explain what's expected. We can't just assume that kids know what and how to act. We need to teach that, and I think that's a big piece of what PBIS is. And it's funny, asking for the sign at home, that connects to the whole parent piece too, right? So for the reason and the way we're approaching this in a team style setting, it really allows parents to be able to use some of this language at home, which can be helpful and make it full circle. So.
Anybody else? I just want to say, I appreciate, I actually went to the center school PTO meeting before this, and it was kind of a trial run, and in the meeting, we were supposed to get up and dance and sing a song, and I was afraid she might have us do it tonight, although I would have probably paid money to see Jay get up and sing. But I do appreciate
I
it.
think everyone else danced except for you.
I think myself and the other teacher that was there, we don't know if we get up and dance, but, and I do appreciate you mentioned the PTOs, because they do so much work, they raise so many funds and provide so many, enrichments for the kids and things for the staff and everything else, I don't think they get the credit that they deserve, so I appreciate that.
You ran a terrific, or co-sponsored a terrific activity this weekend with the electronics drop-off, which was also a tremendous community service. I know I appreciated getting rid of the 2 TVs I had in my garage. But it was a terrific turnout, and it was nice to see the kids so involved in helping out with that particular fundraiser, and they did a terrific job. They were polite. Many people commented on what a great job they did, how polite, respectful, thorough, and even eked a couple extra dollars out of them. Yeah.
That's our secret.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else?
No. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very
Kids
much. You
and
did a great job.
staff and parents,
Great
thank you.
job.
Thank you.
All right. Next thing is the boys rugby.
Yes, actually, Athletic Director Dan Hart and some of our high school students are here this evening to talk a little bit about the proposed new sports offering at the high school in the spring for boys rugby. If you recall, when we were approving the student handbook over the course of the summer, that was one of the highlights that they had talked about trying to add this year. I know a couple of committee members had some questions about it, so we asked Dan to put together a little informational packet on it and actually come and speak about it, just to give some of that background information. So Dan is here this evening with some of the high school students to talk about that.
Can I steal one of those back? Thank you. How's everyone doing? While you get your packets, just something that I wanted to talk about where this came from. Last year, when we thought we'd be going to school much later in June, we came up with the idea down in the athletic department to maybe offer some different things for the kids throughout June to keep them busy. If you've ever been to Chelmsford High School after school, you can see there's always kids hanging around, always looking to do something, shoot hoops, get in the weight room. So we thought it'd be a great time to try out some other things and try out some other sports or other offerings or some other clubs. And one of the things when I first started the job is everyone asked me, what about rugby, what about rugby? And I didn't really know anything about rugby, so I just looked and said, well, we've never done it. So when this came up and we had an opportunity to try something, so why don't we try to do a learn to play rugby? So we went out, we found some people to do it, we put it up for the kids, and then when we found out we were going to get out of school early, we said, oh, we'll still offer it, but we don't know if they're going to do it. Well, a bunch of kids kept coming up to us saying, are we still going to do it, are we still going to do it? So the other thing is that for anybody that works in a high school, at the end of the year, especially in June, everyone's gone, it's tough to get kids to do things, right? They go to school and then they get out of there and they go home. The impressive thing with this is we did learn to play rugby. We had 20, I think it was like 23, 24 kids the first week. In the second week, we had almost 30 kids, which was really impressive. It showed that they really loved it. And then the word of mouth got around, and it was great to go up there and watch these kids really, take part in something that none of them have ever really tried and kind of fall in love with it. The students that I have up here right now that are going to introduce themselves in 1 minute have been kind of like the driving force. They did it. They loved it. They've been on me ever since, every week, all the time. Say, hey, are we going to do rugby? Are we going to do rugby? Can we get it done? So I explained to them that we had to go speak to school committee to see and propose if we could have a team. Rugby is an MIA-sanctioned sport now. There's 18 teams. If we were in this, we'd be in Division II. Matched up with teams with similar experience, new teams, and similar sizes. So there is an opportunity there. I think it would be a great opportunity when you see kids love it as much as they did. I think it is always, we're always trying to keep the kids involved and get them to do something. And when you see that they love something as much as these guys do and there's buzz about it, I think that it was only right to go forward and ask, if we could add a team. So I'd like the kids, if we could just introduce yourselves, guys, real quick.
Hi, I'm Clayton Castelletto. I'm a senior at Chelmsford High.
I'm Jake Harrison, and I'm a senior at Chelmsford High as well.
I'm Pat O'Neill. I'm also a senior.
I am Luke Harrison. I'm a sophomore.
I think there's a lot of questions that these guys could probably answer for you on the game of rugby, and you'll see that you have an informational packet there as well. But these guys also wanted a chance to speak, and they just prepared little short things each to really talk about why they think we should have a program. So, Clay, you want to kick it off?
I just want to start out by saying thank you for your time and listening to our proposal, because we all want to see our hard work come together here and start a team. I'll just speak to my experience personally with the sport, and I'm sure many of my fellow students here feel the same about it. I had no idea what rugby was before I came to the Learn to Play camp this spring, and I really didn't know what it was about. I didn't even know the camp was happening until my friend Luke told me about it at lunch, and I went to it after school that day. And there was a big learning curve, but I think we can all agree we fell in love with it after getting through that learning curve. And I think one of the best parts about it was kids from all different sports backgrounds can use all different types of skills in the sport, and they can get through that learning curve, basically kids every sport, and that's one of the best parts about it. Personally, I was cut from the baseball team, and I was looking for a sport in the spring, and this filled like a perfect niche for me. So with that, I'll let Jake take it from there.
Yeah, and on what he said about how it spread really quickly was we saw flyers around the school, and we'd just be walking around like, oh, like this rugby thing, like, and so we all just got together, we're like, let's go to it. And so when we went, it was really fun, and ever since we had the Learn to Play, it's spread through the school like wildfire. And people have come up to all of us and has asked about it, like, when is it? Like, is it going to happen and stuff like that. And even before the Learn to Play, that we were all just talking about how we should add like another sport because it would be fun, like rugby, where there's a different culture and how it's played. It's a lot different, and because some of us didn't have a sport to play in the spring, like all of us, Clay got cut, like I didn't have anything, and we also have a Twitter page that we run, and I think Pat owns it, and we just post updates on local rugby games and other rugby stuff, like the UML games, and there's a tournament this past weekend where there was the championship game on Sunday.
So obviously with a contact sport like rugby comes up the issue of safety and injuries. Sadly, rugby is seen as a very dangerous, rough sport, but I would not say it's as rough as people would think. Anything is as dangerous as you can make it out to be. You can get hurt tying your shoe, anything like that. So what we're going to try to strive to do is make safe tackling techniques and really push just safe tackling and making sure you don't use your head and you're always doing everything how we want it to be done.
Chelmsford High has a long history of multiple championships, like throughout all sports, and we were hoping that we could add a new sport to that to try and get a championship to just be like the first of something. To be like the first rugby team in history would be an honor. It would be like a great achievement to have. Chelmsford High has a lot of tradition just by itself, and to add something to that tradition would be great. I truly believe that the sport will be uplifting to the students and community of Chelmsford. It'll give people something to look forward to on Fridays.
Well said, guys. And I think, to add to what Patrick said, I think when people don't know about rugby, the first thing they think of is like, oh, it's just hitting and all this stuff. And while people might think it is not a violent sport, it's a physical sport. But all those things like the violence and all that stuff and rough play is, it's not allowed. It's discouraged. And the thing that I found most interesting when I watched a lot of the videos on it was not only are those not allowed, you're only allowed to tackle, with your shoulder from knee level up to chest. And they don't wear helmets. So I think that's a lot of things. The concussions, there's not a high rate of concussions in rugby compared to other sports because there's no helmet. And when the helmet goes on, people think they're invincible, and they tend to lead with their helmet at times. There's no helmet. There is a cap that you can wear for protection. It's a cloth helmet that some people choose to wear. It's optional in this. But as far as all that stuff goes, anyone who were to play recklessly, in rugby, the culture is what the official says goes. There's no arguing. There's no questioning. If you argue with the official, you're gone. If they even think you're going to be reckless, you're gone. And so it teaches great discipline. There are teams in the NFL and then going through the NFL right now when they're working on, with things with their concussion protocol and how to always work on tackling. And you might have heard of heads-up tackling before. That was like the program that went through. And they found out that they're starting to abandon heads-up, and they're starting to use rugby tackling because it's a safer method, and they're finding that there's a lot less injuries. With rugby as well, there's a major emphasis on cardiovascular health as well as strength and conditioning. It's 15 on 15. Best way to describe it, if you've never seen it, it's you are trying to advance the ball to the other goal line by a series of laterals. You have to keep throwing the ball backwards to get forwards. I know that probably sounds confusing, but if you saw it, that's probably the best way to explain it. Being 15 on 15, you're always going. It's 2 30-minute halves, so you really have to rely on the whole team. It really is such a team sport, and I think we have a lot of students who would learn how to function within a team and can learn a lot because everyone has their own little role, and I think being a part of a team is one of the most rewarding things you can do as a student, even as an adult, still playing on some teams now. You still learn something every single day. You learn how to work with other people, and I think a lot of great life lessons are learned through that. I also think this has the potential to be a big program. We have, back when I was graduating high school in 1999, they had just started lacrosse. And lacrosse started as a club program. And now it is, you've seen how well our lacrosse programs have done it, but that sport has taken off here so much that it's very specialized. So a lot of kids used to play JVB lacrosse and use that kind of as just an extra sport to play, where a lot of kids hadn't really played before, and they would come up and they'd learn a little bit that way. Well, now all these kids don't do that because everyone's been playing in the youth leagues, and the youth leagues are so advanced. So we've lost a lot of kids playing a sport because they haven't come out for those JVB levels of lacrosse. I think this would fill a void. I think we'd have a lot of people that would play, and I think it would be great for our school.
I have a couple of questions. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I do too, but you
Okay.
jump in.
So I think this is a great idea. I played rugby a long time ago. The mall, ruck, and scrum pretty much convinced me that it wasn't something I wanted to pursue after my first bloody nose. But, be that as it may, I do think that it's a great sport. I think there's a lot of potential. I think it's becoming very popular at the college level, especially in the intramural level. One thing I would ask is that you consider not making helmets optional. I think that concussions, you're right, are down. So I would also ask you to take a look at your training, because I believe that spinal injuries are up in rugby as opposed to the concussion rate. So I think, these kinds of things are things that we need to be aware of and make sure that we take the appropriate measures to make sure the kids stay safe and are trained properly in how to use the tackling techniques and the other things, the other aspects of the sport, so that we can reduce injuries and, not set kids up for issues later on in life, whether it be because of a brain injury or a spinal cord injury. But I think it's a terrific idea, and I'm glad that you're pursuing this. I've had the opportunity to see actually some of Chelmsford High's women alumni playing for UMass Lowell, and I would be interested to hear about what the women's plan is for a rugby team in the future and what the interest level is too.
Yeah, and to add to that, I put it in the packet, but I didn't discuss that. When we did learn to play in the spring, it was for everyone. I think some of the females, I think we had two come out. Was it one or two came out? But I think what they saw, I think they just saw a lot of males and were like, well, maybe it's not our pace. What we'd like to do in spring is offer a learn to play for girls, and we have a couple staff members who played as well.
Yep.
We have a lot of kids who graduate and come back, and I know you guys had some kids that came back and did learn to play, and we have a lot of females who do it as well. So I think it could be an opportunity to be another female sport.
Great, thank you.
Just real quick, first of all, great initiative, starting a new program. I think that's a great idea, and I agree with Dawn on a lot of that. I just had a quick question, though. What's your preferred positions? What do you guys like to play?
Well, everyone has a different position, so usually the bigger people have like a certain position where.
Yep. No. What are your positions? What do you guys like to play?
Well, I'm not the biggest guy, so I'm usually towards the end, and I'm pretty fast. So I don't know what position they'd call it, but I'd
Run
be
for
toward
your
the end.
life.
Yeah. Oh, I think they call it a wing. So,
Wing, yeah.
I think one of the funny things was we had a bunch of kids from the football team that went out that were offensive linemen. And we love this. We actually get to touch the ball for once. We've been playing for 4 years and we never touched the ball. We touched the ball, so it was great, and they loved it. So.
I will let you know the guys that play in the center make fun of the wing, so it's pretty common. What about you?
I play a wing also.
Nice. You guys?
I tried out flanker.
Nice.
Scrum half.
There you go. Look at that. Awesome. Thank you.
Al, anything?
Well, I'll just say right off the top that I support bringing the sport in. I think anything that expands our program involves kids is great. I do have a concern, and having lived through the transition of bringing in lacrosse, and I hope that this involves new people. What I wouldn't like to see is the same number of kids playing, and just moving out of track and lacrosse, particularly track. People should go and play where they want, so that's why I'm not standing in the way. But I know the track program got killed by lacrosse, and it's just a reality. So I support it. I hope it involves new people as much as it can.
Just a couple quick, so you said there's a league already. What teams would you be playing? Do you know what?
Yeah, so right now we would be in what they call Division II. Yep. The teams on top of it, Cambridge Regional Latin, Malden Catholic, Algonquin. There's also teams in Division I that eventually we put, like Lincoln Sudbury. I'm trying to think on the top half. In the bottom half, it's Blue Hills and Canton. So it's teams all within kind of that 30-mile radius.
Okay. All right. How about in the MVC? Anybody else?
No one yet, except Andover has a club team. In our last MVC meeting, we brought up that we're pursuing rugby, and he said that he would like to as well. And then we had other schools as well. I wouldn't be shocked if there was an MVC conference if we had rugby in the MVC over 5
And
years.
is MIA sponsoring a tournament, or is it just a league?
There is a
thing?
state
Okay.
tournament, yeah. So everyone's in what they call the Commonwealth Conference. But Division I and Division II for the MIA is the Commonwealth Conference. But there is a state tournament, which I think, I'm not sure if you guys went to that last year, but it was at Endicott.
Okay. Okay. And I noticed the thing, it said you were thinking about using either the plateau field or the turf. Can you even use turf fields for rugby?
You can, yeah.
I was just thinking about
Yeah,
a lot of rug burns there.
Yeah, so that, even with everything that the plateau field looks great right now. It's beautiful right now. I think the benefit of having the turf, as we all know, is this has been probably the worst fall in a long time. It's rained every Tuesday through Friday we've had, and we didn't miss any games because that drained so well. So we can stick to a schedule. But it is, it's also good for the kids to get out there on the turf under the lights, and, the people get to see them, they get to have their event, so.
My last question just had to do, I saw your proposed budget, and then part of what you said is the kids were gonna buy their own uniforms, they're gonna fundraise for their own uniforms. How's that gonna work?
So what we'll do is, once, if this gets approved, what we'll start doing is we will start putting out, we'll post for the position. Once we get a coach in place and the coach can have a meeting, one meeting, with kids that would want to be interested. It would be a no-cut program that first year, especially, because you're just trying to get everybody involved. And from that meeting on, they can talk about fundraising, so before the season.
So are they gonna fundraise for a uniform they're gonna keep? I mean, I don't know, how's that gonna?
If they fundraise for the uniform,
Yeah.
normally what that'll happen is they'll keep that in the program. So they'll fundraise for the uniform, it'll stay in the program from year to year. That way they won't have to fundraise for it again. If they were going to keep the uniforms, they would buy the uniforms on their own.
And what is the uniform, just shorts and a t-shirt? I don't even know.
For them, it's like almost like one of those, not compression, but that type of shirt, almost like a soccer shirt, and shorts.
Okay. All right, because there is a little excess in their budget, so I don't know if some of that money could go towards the uniforms, as it is.
Yeah, that's something, I'll definitely look into that.
Just one more question, sorry. What was the Twitter handle that you mentioned?
Oh, I can pull it up right now. Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of the teams in our school have Twitters to just something during school we can just shout it out. So we created CHS Boys Rugby, I think. And what we just do on it is we talk about the UML games. We let everyone know about them. We support the other teams in the school, and we just try to get everyone to know that rugby's a good sport and they should try it out.
Get one more follower at least tonight.
It's at CHS Lions Rugby. That's the Twitter handle.
Thank you.
Dan, just a couple of questions. And Alan kind of talked about it earlier. Typically, if this comes in for boys, it's a spring sport. If girls were to come on in the future, is it also a spring sport for girls?
Also a spring sport, yeah.
Okay, so it's not one season or the other. Who typically, when these clubs come on board, what is the competition base? Like, is there a particular team that these kids pull from to do rugby as opposed to something else?
Well, in the spring, really no. What it was in the spring, there was a lot of kids who weren't doing anything because as we went forward, a lot of our teams, last spring we had an outstanding spring and all of our teams were in the state tournament. So we didn't really have anyone from there, and track was still going, so we didn't pull anybody from that. And that really isn't the goal. The goal is not to really pull from anybody. The goal is to just have kids more involved, and we always want to give an opportunity. And if there's kids that aren't doing anything that want to do something, that's what we'd want to give. But I understand exactly, what Mr. Thomas is saying, because I also know that I'll probably have coaches that are like, oh, well, all these guys are going to go to that. And really, that's not, I don't think that's going to happen. But I also think if, someone was, in one sport and they were going to leave to go to another, that's also their choice if we open it up to them. I don't think we're going to have a lot of that. It's very rare that someone has earned their time to now be in a varsity team and now will say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to leave that and just go try something totally different, I think.
I saw Intercity Rugby in England. It's like semi-pro football, that level. And they had cheerleaders for the first time, and they didn't have a clue what cheerleaders were all about. We laughed through the whole flipping thing. The play was great. The cheerleaders were awful.
Just a couple of other questions, more budget related. If you look through the third sheet of the packet that you put together, there's a cost for coaches. There's projected, say 3 or so home games, 3 or so road games. So you've included costs for transportation, what the officials for the current matches will cost. And then just for people watching at home, you have your overall total expense for the program, about $8,200 budget-wise. And then in revenue, it's projected the user fees, and even if it was a third season user fee for the number of students, taking in limited gate receipts. And then again, part of this does involve, which I think was already in the works, basically removing JVB, girls and boys lacrosse, and reallocating those stipends to support rugby. So that is where some of the financial revenue is built into this. So technically, if that other switch happens, it's a net neutral effect on the program. If anything, you actually might save a little bit of money by running this. There's not a big cost for operating this program or having this startup.
And the revenue projections are, you know, they're very conservative. I mean, that's if we have 25, and that's if every single one of those kids, that's their third sport.
Right.
Same thing with, you know, match gate receipts. I mean, $500, that's saying, max, that's saying only 100 adults would come in throughout the whole year. You know, but who knows, we could get terrible weather and no one comes to anything. But I think those are fairly conservative. I just always want to operate like that when I look at it, is kind of go worst case, you know, of what we would get. So I think, you know, that's, I wouldn't be surprised if we outshot that.
Great. Anybody else? All right, thank you all very much.
All right, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Nice job.
We already approved it.
We already approved it in the
Yeah,
handbook,
I
so I
think
guess
so.
unless there was any reason not to support it, it'll be inaugural season this spring.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming to present.
Next is the capital plan. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so the capital plan, just to review for you, we had previously distributed to you over the course of a number of meetings. The first meeting, we gave you the capital plan that we had prioritized from the Durham Whittier study. Then we added in some of the previously existing town capital projects. Third, we added in some technology projects, and then presented an overarching plan to you and prioritized projects to go forward to the town capital committee meeting in for funding for 20. So before you this evening, a few different documents. First is, again, the 5-year capital plan. So when we go to the town capital committee, even though we have a 10-year capital plan, they really look at things in a 5-year window. So I basically just took the first 5 years of the plan, reorganized it a little bit, and these are some of the granular level details on the project. What we then do for the town capital plan is group some of the projects together under kind of overarching categories. So after you get through that Microsoft Excel spreadsheet of all the various projects, there's probably 6 or 8 different major funding categories that the individual projects fall within. And then we have to prepare a project detail sheet for each of the projects to move forward. So when you look at those project detail sheets, even though we don't have projects in fiscal 20 listed in some of the columns, we provide them to the capital committee just to kind of forecast what's coming in the future. But what I did for this evening, let me just give me 1 minute to pull it up. The the major projects in front of you, and I just put this on TV so people at home could watch too, to walk through, that are being considered in fiscal 20 that add up to that $1.7 million, is a school clock upgrade at Center Elementary School. So this is a singular project that really affects Center. We've had a significant number of breakage and then just kind of malfunctioning within their clock system within the school, so that randomly, as you go room to room, the clocks aren't on the same kind of bell schedule, and it's difficult for staff and students within the building. So that is a project that really just touches Center Elementary School. The second project had to do with ductwork cleaning, repair, upgrade within a number of the buildings. So again, this had come out of the Durham Whittier study. This again touches on multiple schools, but for the capital planning purposes, when we present, we basically lump the schools together and have one line item for the $156,000 that's for the ductwork. Third project was the school repairs. We have some VCT tile, which is basically the square tiles that you'll find in different schools. I know there was some at Westland School, there was some at McCarthy Middle School, that basically have either become broken, chipped, and certainly beyond repair. Not a situation where you have to remove all the tiling from a room and retile, but randomly there'll be some breaks in tile, just based on maybe a floor happened to bow a little bit, and some of the tiles had popped, so there's some tile repair work that needs to be done. But it's at a significant number dollar-wise, where it's not a number that we would carry in the operating budget either for the schools or for the town. So that's what trips it up into a capital request. So that was the third on the list. The fourth project on the list, again, right now these are in no specific order, other than they just follow the SIP sheets that follow this listing, is school kitchen code compliance upgrades. So at a lot of our schools over the last number of years, we've received different kind of write-ups from the building inspector or the health inspectors when they come through for kind of code compliance issues. So one of the big issues you'll find if you come into our kitchens in the preparation areas, a lot of our kitchens still have like butcher block preparation sinks, which again, I actually have in my own home, but in an industrial cooking kitchen, you're not really supposed to have that. They're supposed to be stainless steel. There are some missing sinks. Again, they'll have like a main sink in the kitchen, but you're really supposed to have a separate sink in a working kitchen for cleaning, say, pots and pans and things like that from an employee washing their hands. So there were a whole bunch of different, we kind of term them code compliance issues. Another one that gets raised quite frequently is in the kitchens, we don't have what they consider washable ceilings. So like, say, this would be a drop ceiling that would have a panel in it that you basically could wash if you needed to. A lot of our ceilings are a little bit taller, and they're actually just cement. So the Board of Health doesn't consider that a washable ceiling. So what they want you to put in is basically a drop ceiling with tiles that can be washed, and we don't have that. So that is a pretty significant number. That adds up to just a little bit under $300,000, but I lump those all into what we called code compliance. The next project down was about $100,000 worth of school kitchen upgrades. So this is something that you're going to see for the next number of years. The way we approach this is at the high school, the Parker, and McCarthy. Those are three functioning kitchens right now that actually, we do produce food in each day. So those are kitchens that we want to upgrade over the next number of years. They're ballpark $600,000 jobs per kitchen, and we had slated one in 21, one in 22, and one in 23 because we couldn't lump them all in at the same time. It would also be very difficult for us to upgrade three kitchens all at the same time as well. This particular project relates more to the elementary schools, and at our elementary schools in Westlands, where they're not functioning kitchens right now. So we're using the high school as kind of the food service commissary. The food is being sent out to the elementary schools. That program is actually going very well. Nancy Antolini is coming to our next meeting to give an update on how that's going. But one of the things that is severely needed in those schools is some upgrades to their serving lines. So like when you walk through the kitchen and you have the like the cold wells where you might find like say the milk or vegetables and fruits in, or if it's a hot meal and there's a like a hot item, a lot of those kind of either cooling or heating wells have broken and are not properly working. So there's some modest, what we call service line upgrades that are built into the elementary schools. Again, because we're not going to totally outfit them for all new cooking equipment at this point in time, because we're not cooking in the buildings. But these are just some modest upgrades to be able to better the service lines in those schools. And that's about $100,000, again, split up over the different schools. We then had, just want to refresh your memory, two parking lot upgrades that were carried over from last year for different reasons. So when we went to the town capital committee last year, there wasn't sufficient funding just overall to be able to pay for the rear of the high school parking lot and then the front high school parking lot to be done at the same time. So the rear parking lot at the high school was in significantly worse shape than the front of the high school. So we ended up doing the rear parking lot first, and we said we would try to do the front parking lot this particular year. So what that involves is actually kind of grinding up and removing all the pavement, putting in new curbing, and then putting in new hot top and sidewalks in that in the front of the school. So that's about a $500,000 cost for doing the front of the high school. And we were trying to use the remaining money from the modular construction projects to add some parking, not to redo the parking, but to add some parking spaces at both Center Elementary School and Harrington Elementary School. So if you drive by either Harrington or Center during the course of the day, you see cars kind of parked anywhere you can find room, up on islands, up on the street. We really do need to add some parking at those schools. When we went out to bid to have the Center and the Harrington parking lots redone, the bids came in over budget. So there was basically enough money to be able to do one of the two schools, but not both. What we ended up speaking with school facilities and town facilities, prioritize the Center School parking lot and being able to rebid this winter for the work to be performed either this spring or summer at Center School using the remaining modular money. So that's why you don't see Center parking lots on here. But where we don't have funding for the Harrington, we've used the bid price, the low price, for the Harrington to actually come up with a budget figure for this particular school. What that involves at Harrington is really redoing that whole front island of the building and making another kind of lane of driveway and then parking spots on either side. Very similar to what we did at the Byam School. If you pull into Byam now, we kind of cut a chunk out of the big circle in front of the building and added a significant number of parking spots over there, which has been very well received. So we broke up those two lots. And then lastly, school security upgrades. So Bill Silver in our technology department, as you know, we reported previously, we had a multi-year plan to upgrade our internal infrastructure within the buildings. And at this point in time, last summer, or summer before last, we had upgraded the network at Parker. This past summer, we had gone to town capital to receive, or to request funding, which was granted, to upgrade 3 of our schools with new networks this past summer. That was McCarthy and 2 elementary schools. We thought we were gonna have to wait to go back to the town this year to try to get the high school and the remaining 2 elementary schools, but Bill was able to get a grant to actually pay for those to be done at the same time. So this past summer, in early fall, we actually have replaced the computer network infrastructure, new wireless connectivity and whatnot, in all of our schools, including the high school and those last 2 elementary schools. So we're now ready to actually accept more cameras on the inside of our buildings. Right now, Chelmsford High School has a significant number of security cameras on the exterior of the building and the interior. At our elementary and middle schools, we have significant camera coverage on the exterior of the buildings, but we only have coverage at the main door when you come into the building in the hallways. We don't have it throughout the buildings, largely because we didn't have the capacity in the network or service space to really add additional cameras. So now that we have that, Bill has actually walked the buildings with some technology vendors, coordinated with the police department for like location of cameras and things like that, because the police department does, all of our cameras feed back to them as well, so that they can access our cameras if they ever needed to. He's looked at additional security functionality around kind of like door announcers, so that if someone happened to prop a door open, you could actually get an alarm within the school so that someone would know that happened. Different kind of panic alarms that could be installed and to be used in different circumstances. I don't want to get too into it, but we will have a follow-up meeting with the school committee sometime later in November or December to kind of talk about some of the specifics of that particular plan. But that particular plan ends up costing a ballpark about $1.5 million for a comprehensive, full updating of all of our security cameras and all these different add-ons within the school department. We obviously know that's a significant number to do at one time. Also, even just to have the work done at one time would be difficult. So we broke that project up over 3 years. In the first year, this first $452,000 basically is an upgrade in addition of the systems at the 2 middle schools in the district. Our thought process was the high school, again, currently has significant camera coverage as it stands. We would go in the first year of the program because we previously planned on doing Parker because they had the new network. McCarthy was getting the network online. This is before we knew we had the grant to do them all at the same time. That we would add the interior camera coverage and obviously the door announcers and things like that now at the middle schools. Go back next year and add that functionality at the high school, fully reintegrate all the existing cameras there into the new system. And then in year 3, do the 4 elementary schools. Again, it's approximately $500,000 a year to be able to do that. And again, that adds up to about $1.7 million, which was the number that we were carrying in our program. So these are kind of the macro level projects. Again, even when you get into, say, the school security upgrade, we could break that down by building but we were really looking at this as doing middle schools one year, the high school the next, and the elementary the third year. And I really think to go beyond 3 years to do these upgrades would be too long. So, you know, that was some of our thought process. What we need to do now, so I have prepared all the different data sheets that have gone to the town capital planning committee. Over the next number of Fridays, we actually have meetings to present our projects and then talk about prioritization of the projects with the town capital committee to ultimately come up with a number of articles that will be proposed at Springtown meeting. And then if they're funded, we would actually commit to have this work be performed next summer. One of the things the town capital committee has asked in the past is, you know, in the event that we can't fund all of these projects, what is the school committee's priority? So, you know, we have $1.7 million worth of projects. All the other town departments all together, the list for this year's, the request is just shy of $5 million. And typically, the town capital committee spends, you know, approximately $3 to $3.2 million per year on projects. So we know town-wide, we're not going to be able to fund all projects. And what they ask us to do is go through a process of prioritizing our projects so that when they do go forward to the capital planning committee, obviously they'll be taken in totality, but if we had to do some cutting, you know, they don't want to have the first priority of the school department not be funded over, you know, project number 6 or 7 or something like that. So, wanted to have a discussion with you tonight to kind of see how you feel about that. I posted up on the board just a little rolling spreadsheet so that I could actually plug numbers into it while we're doing our prioritization, and then I can resort it just so you can get a sense of kind of what we're looking at. I have a couple of things I'd like to recommend to you as far as priorities go, but before we're doing that, wanted to kind of get your feedback on where we stand at this point, and then have a discussion.
All right, anybody have some initial thoughts? Oh, she moved the mic, so I figured she would.
I figured I would eventually.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I really do have, I have a lot. One of the things that I've really been thinking about was the last town meeting that we had, when John Souza did his presentation, and kind of looking at the future forecast for the town. And it wasn't looking, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and anybody else that was there can correct me, it wasn't looking as positive, I think, as maybe people had hoped. Is that fair to say? Yeah, I think you guys were there, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that I want to do as we're doing this is to be mindful of the fact that, you know, the town does invest a lot of money
Right.
in the schools and in the education of the kids in town. But we're not an island, right? We're part of the overall fabric of the town, and I think that we have to be aware of that, given what John had said. So I guess I feel better just for having said that, you know. I think we have a responsibility to certainly advocate for the schools, but to be aware of the needs of the rest of the town.
Right. I didn't have an opportunity to, I had an opportunity, I didn't attend the town meeting that evening because we didn't have any warrant articles from the schools on there. I did go back and watch John's presentation, and that was kind of doing a 5-year forecast of the overall town budget,
Right.
not necessarily just capital. but
Right,
just
exactly,
taking a look at,
yes.
you know, the tax base, you know, if we
Right.
go up the 2.5% every year,
Right.
kind of where that leaves us.
Right,
And I think this
exactly.
coming year is certainly tight,
Right.
but then the outlier years, it gets a little tighter and tighter.
Right.
Unless there's some kind of like new growth or some kind of new revenue base for the town. I
And I
think,
think we're certainly hoping that, you know, some of these projects
right,
that, you know, are coming online, you know, the 129 overlay and things like that will certainly help.
right.
But, you know, I don't think at this point we can necessarily count on that. So I just, again, you know, it's about being sensitive.
Right.
You know, to the fact that there's a lot of competing needs in town.
Mhm.
And, you know, and so as we're prioritizing to just be mindful of that, so.
John, you have something?
Not yet.
Okay.
I need to put a little thought into this. So I guess I do have a question. So we're talking about prioritizing this list in case we can't get all of these things, right? That's, I mean, what are your thoughts on what are your thoughts on what the priority should be?
In your packet, in the left folder of your sheet, I kind of put a little ranking of some of these projects together for you to be able to think about, and I'll share my thoughts with you tonight. And again, I would love to do all of these. I think, there's this and more that needs to be done, but even as we try to approach this capital plan, we have the Durham Whittier study, which was obviously millions of dollars. We didn't want to, if we know the town only spends about $3 million a year on capital, we didn't want to come forward with, $8 million of school projects. So we really tried to keep it to like $1.5 million to $2 million per year for the next 3 to 5 years of requests. Again, just trying to be reasonable in this, knowing that full well, not everything is going to get funded in the year that we want, and if it doesn't, we then have to come back and reprioritize and push things out. One of the things that I do think is kind of just jumps to the top of the list for me is the school kitchen code compliance upgrades, because, we have a, Board of Health and building inspectors and health inspectors that, come out and review our kitchens and, cite us for, again, having the butcher block instead of the stainless steel, the non-washable surfaces and things like this. Anytime, I think if we're dealing with kind of code compliance or health safety type issues, I think that has to jump to the top of the list. Not to say, and this is the struggle, because not to say anything else isn't, important here or competing, but I wouldn't want to be in a situation where, God forbid, we don't do something and all of a sudden someone gets sick in one of the kitchens because we didn't act on information that we had. So I do think personally the $285,000 for the code compliance, for me, that kind of jumped to the top of the list. I then, looking at the whole list, think the school security upgrades come in second. Again, we've spent a lot of money, well over $1 million, even just this past year, on upgrading our networks to be able to accept this new functionality, to be able to accept more internal cameras within the schools that could help us in an emergency situation, to help us as far as identifying, again, doors that are unlocked, or putting in additional communication devices of panic type alarms in the event of an emergency, to be able to hit a button instead of having to call the police department for assistance or whatnot. I think that for me is kind of second behind the health code issues in the schools. And I think what I struggled with, but I think this is a real approach to it. I am concerned about someone saying, well, why wouldn't you do that all at the same time? You have $1.5 million project. How are you saying one school is more important than another or whatnot? And I guess the way I look at that is that we do have significant cameras and view access at the high school right now, which, is our biggest school, potentially just because of the size and the kids involved, is probably your higher risk school. You then kind of step down to the middle schools, and I think, again, when we have that infrastructure, and, if we want to be able to accomplish some of these other projects to keep the whole district moving forward, it'd be very difficult to just spend $1.5 million all in 1 year, in one shot on the technology. Also, I just do know, working with the different vendors that do this, that's a significant project for a vendor to accomplish, and I wouldn't want it to be done shoddy. I'd almost like to get the technology into a couple of our schools and really work through any of the kinks before it gets fully rolled out. And in my mind, that's how I justify kind of doing that as a phased approach. But I do think the security, for me, kind of comes in second. I personally then go back to the kitchen upgrade, the $100,000 at the elementary schools, knowing that the high school, the Parker and McCarthy, are going to be covered over the next 3 years, hopefully, 21, 22, 23, with brand-new facilities where they're actually doing the cooking. It hasn't gotten to a code compliance issue yet at the elementary schools with the serving lines, but when you have broken serving lines and you can't use them to keep food cold or hot, and we really are trying to enhance our food operation in the schools, to me, that's tough to not have updated serving lines in the schools.
One of the reasons I think I was interested in that was because I think that Nancy is also trying to roll out some of this programming to some of the organizations like the PTOs and whatnot, and support them in their activities. I think she provided recently some of the food for, might have been the South Row Pumpkin Fair. and, you know, where they were serving it there, so, I can see this as being a benefit, not just to, the lunch program, but also to some of these other programs as well that benefit from serving foods at, at their events, that ultimately raise money for the enrichment programs that we do in the schools. I do have one question. I know that we're doing really, really well with the lunch program this year, much better than we had expected, and we're going to be rolling out breakfast soon. If there was a profit in that area, could that be used for any of the upgrades in the elementary school kitchens?
Yeah, it potentially could. I think one of the issues that we've shied away from a little bit this year, kind of putting that into the equation, is that this is a big enhancement year for us. We did buy the vehicle to kind of help even transport the food lunches around to the schools. We're really trying to work on, more offerings and, kind of high quality, even when it comes to the fruits and vegetables and things like that. We've had to add some labor to be able to run the commissary at the high school. And we almost kind of wanted a year to be able to work through the budget with the revenues and the expenditures to see longer term how we're going to be able to sustain that. Technically, the other thing that we've tried to do, and we're pretty close, is to be able to accrue 3 months kind of revolving fund within that. And I think that's a pretty good industry standard, to be able to have 3 months on hand to be able to pay your bills in the event you didn't have revenue coming in. I don't know exactly if we're at that number, but I know we're in the ballpark. But my only concern tapping it this year for that would be not fully going through a whole school year to see exactly where we're going to end up at the end of the year, because we have had some volatility. We've got a lot more people eating, lunch and breakfast. The breakfast actually, ironically, I could report on this later, but when I was at South Row yesterday, I learned that yesterday was the day they rolled out the breakfast at South Row. So I know it's coming at the elementary schools over the next couple of weeks, but I'm just not fully certain at the end of the year where all those costs are going to come in.
Okay.
I would almost be more comfortable waiting a year, and because again, we're still going to have upgrades in years 2, 3, and 4 of this plan, and allocating this towards some of the budget if we had to in those other programs. The money can technically be used anywhere, at the elementary, the middle, the high school level.
Right.
It's just hard for me without having a full year spent to be able to figure out where we're going to end.
Okay.
Then you kind of get into some of these other, they're not health, they're not life safety type things. There's certainly aesthetically improvements and needed. For a relatively small amount of money, for a little under $40,000, it is very annoying when your clocks don't work in your school. When it comes to like your clocks, or your intercoms, your phone systems and things like this, this has been going on for quite some time. Center School is by far one of the worst that we're having the clock issue in. This got flagged in most of the other schools, but it didn't get picked up in the capital plan until years 6 to 10. That's why you're not seeing it on this particular sheet in front of you. But I would kind of put that in for 4th to just get that cleaned up for the staff and the parents in the school. I'm just giving you my take now, and I still want to go back and have dialogue about this, but I just kind of want to give you my thinking. I then jumped to the parking lots, because again, this has been something that we have been trying to get done, and I think it's not a super attractive, kind of project to get done, but it actually does make a difference. So if you go to the high school now and drive down the back parking lot or park near the fields, I've actually had people tell me, visiting people that I have, friends that have gone to games, what a nice parking lot you have, or, the kids certainly appreciate it too. That lot was in kind of deplorable shape. I personally, again, I had this conversation with Brian, and I mentioned it to Gary as well. When it comes to parking lots and spaces, as much as I'd love to just finish the high school front, to me, getting extra parking spaces at Harrington, because we've got people parking on the road and people who don't have parking spaces, almost has to come in before the high school front gets done. So I personally put the Harrington as 5 and the high school as 6. And then I rounded out my list with the ductwork at 7 and the random pieces of tile that aren't fixed at 8, and came up with that grouping. And that's what I shared with you in your packet. not, again, not set in stone, really need your input and thinking on it. But I resorted the list so that you could see it on the TV. But that's kind of how I had it come up.
My fear is that number 6, when somebody looks at this list,
Yeah.
they're gonna drop 6 off because it has the biggest impact. Just a thought. I mean, the other one's what, 188,000, something like that?
Which one?
If you combine 7 and 8, it's only just under 200K.
Yeah, I think, and this has been, the capital planning group and the town manager and all the staff have really done, I think, a very good job about kind of attacking this. All these different projects will get talked about, and, we'll debate them, and we'll talk about the merits of them. And then basically, we'll try to back down from, the 3 million. But I think this is helpful to really know exactly what the school committee is gonna prioritize for the projects. So hopefully, projects, 1, 2, 3, 4, in that order, can kind of get accomplished and included in that $3 million amount. Then, there are some big ticket items that we're up against this year. One of the items is, and I'm just doing off the top of my head, so don't fully hold me to it, but I want to say it was like close to $800,000 for a new fire truck. There's a truck that's been, and again, this is another situation where it's been delayed kind of year after year after year, it gets pushed out. But that's a big number, and at some point in time, we're going to have to buy a fire truck. There's some kind of GIS software that's another $500,000 that's kind of hanging out there that the town needs to invest in for some of their GIS mapping. These are all very legitimate things. It's just we're all competing for the same kind of pool of funding. I guess, again, my look at this, and this was just my first stab at it for discussion purposes, was kind of health safety first, security, and then getting into some of the the physical improvements to the property.
I think I'd like
That's
to
where
move the
it came.
Harrington parking lot up before the clocks.
Yeah.
I actually had it too. I mean, I made my own list. I did have safety and Harrington the first two, because they're both involved with safety, because I know at Center, they've been, asking for improvements for a couple of years now, and it's always because when they have events, there's cars everywhere and there's kids everywhere, and it's not not a safe situation. I assume Harrington's the same way. So I found that, that the safety upgrades in Harrington, I had my first two, and then I had the kitchen ones, and then I had the clock,
I agree with that. I think the Harrington should move up.
And they was, it didn't work out. They were supposed to, both Center and Harrington, get
Right, well,
upgrades.
that was
and
our
and-
intent. It just came out
Right,
of a budget.
exactly. So they were kind of anticipating that happening too.
I have a question on the ductwork, though. Now, as far as that's concerned, does that have any impact on the air quality in the schools?
No, the ductwork is largely in the kind of the kitchen and the cafeteria areas. Most of our schools have like classroom univents. This isn't that.
Okay.
This is like bigger pieces of equipment. And a lot of this is just stuff that typically isn't maintained by like our workers or even town workers. You'd have to have like a third party come in and modify.
And then the other question regarding the ductwork is, if it weren't done, would that have any impact on, is it something that needs this maintenance so that, I don't want to face like
Well, I guess.
large repairs
The
down
answer
the
is
road?
this, like, it hasn't been done.
Okay.
And I'm sure this has been something that's just been kind of pushed year to year.
Okay.
And the bottom line is something, my read on this, not being super technical, is it's just gonna ultimately shorten the life expectancy of whatever the product is. But it has been going on for a long time. It's not like if something happens in 20, it can't happen in 21.
I guess the question is, there's no way to do that out of budget, out of capital?
Well, I guess any of this stuff technically, we could be in an operating budget, but our operating budgets, and this kind of goes to John's point at town meeting, are just so tight. Our operating budgets are pretty much on the school and the town side. It's carrying the cost of your employees, which is your big expense. It's the COLA increases and the steps and lanes, and any of those other kind of contractual requirements. If we have a transportation contract go up for regular ed or special ed, or if we end up having, student tuitions go up, it's smaller items like that, that is basically consuming like that 2.5% a year that we have for operating. So it's just not likely that we can put a line item in the budget to really pay for that.
And the ductwork, it's clean, repair, and service existing HVAC ductwork and air handling devices, replace hot water convector units?
That was one unit.
Yeah, at
one of
Westlands,
the
and
schools.
install a VFD at the high school, whatever that is.
Variable frequency drive.
So that's what goes into that 156.
So I do think that health and safety need to be at the top of our list, but I think, right below that is maintenance, because, if we're not maintaining these things properly, then we're just going to end up spending much more money down the road. So I guess, this is what I'm thinking about in terms of as how we're prioritizing these projects. Of course, that doesn't really answer the question of what it is that we should do, but I do think that, these are the things that we have to keep in mind.
Al, your thoughts?
It's hard, I mean, you could argue in so many different
Yeah.
ways.
Capital's always tough.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I see safety as our number one.
Health and safety.
Yeah.
I think with the kitchens, we don't want to be in a position in which the Board of Health is coming in and, either citing us or shutting us down because we're not complying. And so I think that, that would be a huge problem. So I do think that we definitely have to consider that.
So what would you put as number one?
I think, actually, I would go with school security for number one.
I would
Do
also.
that number one as
I
well.
think
Yep. I would go with school kitchen code compliance as two.
Yep, I agree.
I think that we do have to do something about the elementary school kitchens because, I don't think we're talking aesthetics here. I think we're talking about health code violations. Correct, Jay?
Well, that would be the upgrade one for the,
It hasn't hit, the code compliance stuff, I really do think you have to do. The upgrades, technically haven't hit code compliant yet, but they're not like using some of the serving line because they're broken. So, if they tried to use the serving line, it would probably trigger a code issue because you're not keeping things either warm enough or cold enough. They're working around it at this point.
Right, and I think that's important for people to understand is that the meals have to be served at a certain temperature.
Right.
Right, there are regulations
Oh, right,
around that, right?
right.
So I think we do have to be mindful of that, and that is determined by the Board of Health as far as
Correct.
I understand, right? So I think we have to be mindful of the fact that, we need to be compliant with
Right.
this. So I think the elementary school kitchen upgrade is next to me, the parking lot, and then I am worried about the maintenance. I don't want to see us in a position down the road because we haven't maintained these ducts where we're going to end up spending a lot of money to make repairs that we could have prevented. But I'm,
yep.
I have a question back to the security. Is the changing of the entrances at McCarthy and the high school and so forth, and is that in that, or is that just cameras?
No, so it's cameras, but the high school is in year two. This in front of you right now is Parker and McCarthy. But this is cameras, putting like door activation devices on so that like we know when doors are open and they're not open. Again, like your panic buttons, things like that. We can have a meeting to get more like specific in executive session about like the security devices themselves and what would be there. Like if we were gonna do a physical like retrofitting of a building or even like the front entryway of McCarthy or Parker or something like that, that money is not in here yet. That we were kind of waiting, we are still waiting for, do you remember the company that we hired to come in and work with us on updating our emergency plans and digitizing them and whatnot? They're gonna be looking at that as part of the safety review that they do. I am in the back of my mind, thinking about trying to earmark, because again, this was more technology, not like a physical build. Earmark some of that application that we're gonna put in for that state grant that's gonna come out for school safety towards like physical improvements. So I figured we would earmark that for those schools.
Just to echo Donna, so I think the list, the top two are the top two, but then I agree that we should probably move the parking lot up. And we can't scrounge up $38K for the clock repair. That falls down the list a little bit.
Yeah, I think what ends up happening is this, like, when you look at the clock repair, just in this one particular year, it happened to be the center school, but in the outlier years, it's multiple schools.
Right, it's gonna.
And like, so we wouldn't have, like,
We wouldn't
say,
be able to keep
$300,000 or $400,000 in 1 year to be able to do that. That's where some of these, like, singleton-type projects look funny, because you could say, well, couldn't we put a line item in the local budget? Yes, I just don't know what we're competing against yet, because we're still putting our budget together for next year.
And my heart goes out to anybody that has to deal with classroom clocks that are not in sync.
It's really a problem.
It's,
It
well,
really is horrible.
I'm in a perpetual state of 245. But.
Right, twice a day.
But it is, it's very frustrating. But, you know, I would rather focus on these other things instead.
Right, so is everybody comfortable with 1 and 2 where they are?
Yes.
Al, 1 being safety and 2 being the kitchen codes compliance? I don't know, I don't know if John's the same. I would take Harrington 3 for the
Sure.
parking lot. I do think that's a safety thing. And then the kitchen upgrades 4. But,
Okay.
I
think
mean,
that's fair.
if anybody has other thoughts on that.
It's 6-1.
I'm running your list on the right, just
Yep.
so we can.
Yeah.
Is the
3
clock
for Harrington.
system tied in any way to communication, speaking over the line?
No, so that's a different system. So we did,
Okay,
over
'cause
the last.
that would be definitely a safety.
Over the last 2 years, we upgraded the PA
Okay.
systems in the schools, so they're running parallel systems. They're not impacted by each
Same,
other.
okay.
It
Then
is, yeah, and they don't use like a bell system like the high school would use, so at the elementary level, it's not, like, this would be, as I'm sure you understand, like catastrophic at the high school level. It's very much a nuisance at the elementary level. But no, it has nothing to do with the
Okay,
PA
'cause
system.
that would
They did,
change
I think they did upgrade the PA system, it's
Yeah.
We did.
I say the kitchen upgrade 4, 5, 3 was the parking lot, and then school clock 5, and then the bottom 3. I mean, they're gonna pick it apart anyway and figure out what can fit in the money they think we're gonna get.
Right.
And
If we order it that way, the high school parking lot probably drops off.
I'm betting it's number 6 that drops off.
Yeah.
Which way do you want to order it?
The bottom 3, I think, is.
So you want to put, Donna, you want to do the duct work as full 5?
Only because, like I said, I think
6.
that, you know, I do get concerned that we put things off, and then we end up spending more money in the long run because we didn't maintain things properly.
So you want to put the
So-
duct work 6?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I'd hate to put the parking lot 8, but
Do the
7 for the
7
parking lot, and then.
tiles, 8. Because the tiles mostly aesthetics, right? Not because, just
Yeah,
not,
it doesn't look good. I mean, it's, like, if it was a trip hazard, it's been fixed.
Right.
It looks kind of
Bad,
lousy.
right?
okay.
I think that's a pretty good discussion about it. I think that's good. I think there's a lot of thought around it.
I will say this, though. I think that one of the things that we have to
Let me
do as a
resort
committee
this
is,
your way.
I really think that we have to get on the people at the state level to help us out, particularly with the school safety issues. And I know that you and I had talked about, you know, even possibly having them consider it as an SBA function.
Yeah.
You know.
You were saying there's a new grant? part?
Yeah, a new
Yeah,
grant.
we're just waiting to see what it's gonna look like, but in the Governor Baker and some of last year's excess money, they did a supplemental budget. And I wanna say they put like $5 million worth of funding for, I think it's gonna be matching grants that are gonna come out for like school safety type initiatives. We're just waiting to see if it's gonna be technology related, or I have a feeling it might be more like infrastructure related, if you had to do a physical build out of a school area. But we're just waiting for that to come out. We got an email, I think, last Friday or the Friday before, just saying that the budget had been approved very late, so I think people are now kind of scrambling to get things in the works. But that is something that we need to push on.
I
When we met with the
definitely
state
We've
reps,
been
we
in
talked a little bit
contact
about
with
that.
a couple
Yes.
representatives
Yeah.
and just.
I think we're just waiting for tonight to be over.
Probably, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And then, but I do think that that's something that we really need to push on, you know. They've identified it as a priority. Cities and towns have identified it as a priority. And now, you know, that we've done that, they need to help give us the resources so that we can do that.
Yeah. Like you said, maybe after the elections are over, they'll have a little more time to sit down with us.
So I'm not saying that we shouldn't do this. I'm just saying that I also think that this committee
We're
has a
pushing it at the
responsibility.
same time, yeah.
Yes.
Are the state or agency guidelines in terms of order of importance and security measures? Because it's a huge amount of money that's going in that direction. And I just want to, I want to make sure we get the most for our money. In other words, what would be adequate camera coverage? What would be out of would the classroom doors be the top priority? I mean, are there any kind of guidelines like that? Because every time we spend more money, then we can spend more money, and it's not, and we keep saying it's top. And it is top because of the tremendous national concern about everybody being shot at. But it has to be reasonable. We're in, I don't want to belabor the point, but we're in the education business.
Right.
And we have to keep the kids safe. We have to do it within reasonable guidelines. We can't turn the buildings into fortresses. If we do, it's going to be a totally different picture than where we are.
Mm-hmm.
To make them totally safe, we'd have to close them at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock. And we're not going to do that. And so, I don't know. It's just a delicate balance.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with everyone that's saying it's top priority. It is. But we can't turn them into fortresses. So if there are any guidelines, that would be great. I just, it's all new for people. I didn't realize that's part of the problem.
Will that company that's coming in help us with
Well,
guidelines, or?
They will, but I mean, one of the things you do have to do is kind of keep the company at bay a little bit, because when they're coming in to, kind of sell you a system
Yeah.
too, they're gonna want to put the most expensive and the most coverage in there. So
Yeah.
we have them in and kind of review proposals that come in from multiple companies. Bill, and we do work with the police department, like when you walk a building, to kind of see what would make sense to have a camera or not have a camera. The other thing, and I don't know if you were getting at this, Al, but let's say we prioritize school safety as a top priority, $450,000. If a grant were to come through and we were able to apply for the grant and get the funding, and then we didn't need this, we wouldn't waste it. So we would take the grant as opposed to this, and then this money could then go back to the capital plan and be used for another, I didn't know if that's what you were getting at, but it could be used for another purpose.
What
But
are we
it's-
going to get the most protection, from, in terms of spending our dollar? And it's all big money.
But I think the other thing too is I think when we're talking about school safety, it's not just necessarily because of an armed intruder. I mean, there are things that happen inside the school that we want to be aware of as well.
Right.
So, I think that the camera coverage and taking the necessary safety measures are very important.
Well, one of the biggest potential threats for Parker, Harrington, and the high school and McCarthy is anything on the highway or the railroad going north.
There's not a lot we can do about that.
Well, no, but I'll tell you, as principal of the school, do you do long, one of the things we talk about, long evacuation? I don't think so. Do you sit there? I don't think so. I mean, I'll tell you, that preyed on my mind, because look how close the highway is to the football field. It's behind a couple of trees. And so there are a lot of, I don't want people to think that the fire department and the police department weren't cooperative in the past. They've been great recently, and they've gotten a lot of publicity, and that's great. But when we get discussing things like bombs and spills and things like that, immediately I would ask the fire chief particularly, because that's an area that they actually do more than the police. I would surrender my leadership position and say, what do you think we should do? Because that's where the expertise is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terribly complex and frustrating thing. It's just, to find that, as far as I'm concerned, to find that balance is key, because we have to protect the kids, but we have to do it in the most efficient way that we can. And I know it's all new, and that's what makes it tough. So we're all learning. But the scare tactics are part of the problem too now. There was I don't know who it was, but in the news last night, there was somebody saying that they're now putting out blood kits that the medics in the military carry into the battlefields, and it's talking about that everybody should have one. Well, I want to have a scare tactic. Things are so bad that the guy that was talking, I gave one to my son to take to school. Hey, I mean, this is what the people are hearing. That's why there is such concern. I'm not, again, I was concerned about it, more concerned than a lot of people because of my own experience with it. But those tactics, you know, you're telling people over the national television that your kids and other leaders and other people should carry the kits are for like 5 or 6 tourniquets, 5 or 6 pieces of all of this. It's about this big, and everybody should have one. Holy, I mean, it's really scary. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's just, but that's why people are afraid.
Oh, yeah.
And when they brought back the showing the film for that assassination from the shooting from the hotel, I'd forgotten the numbers in that. Holy mackerel. They keep bringing those, but there is a great fear that's being used. I hate to say that, but it is being used, and yet at the same time, we have to
take
do the best we
precautions.
can.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No.
It's just a frustrating thing.
All right, so are we comfortable with this list as is? On the, our list is our priorities are the right.
On the right, yeah.
On the right.
I resorted it by your priority.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that as?
Yeah. There's more time to debate it if we need to, but I think I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, well, I know they have the first meeting Friday, correct?
Friday's their introductory meeting, and then I think we're on for the 16th to explain our projects.
Right.
And then the last Friday, and the Friday after Thanksgiving is when I believe they'll start to actually kind of factor in all the different
This town
projects.
government moves slow.
Okay. I think that's good.
So do you want to take a motion to approve the priority order list as?
I move that we approve the priority list as we finished, concluded.
Second, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Any further
However you want to word it.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. So we'll go with that on our priority list.
Okay.
All right, next, the Jack Fletcher Fitness Room.
Yeah, Linda, can you help me with this one while I'm just getting my?
Sure. So in the memo, you notice that originally that room was a weight room, and it was appropriated as the Jack Fletcher weight room. So since then, all the work has been completed in that room. It's fantastic, by the way. You should go take a look at it, between all the equipment that they've put in there, the way that the classes are going to be used for that room, as well as for the athletes and, you know, faculty, staff. And what they wanted to do is change it to what it really is, and it's now a fitness room. It's not just a weight room. It has, you know, the Airdyne bikes. It has all of the different weights that originally were there, but then they also have a lot of different activities that the kids can do in their classes, as well as with the athletes. So they were hoping to make that change. They reached out to Jack Fletcher to make sure that he was okay with that, and he was, and they just wanted to be able to name it appropriately for what it is at this point, which would be the Jack Fletcher Fitness Room.
Fitness Center.
Center.
Had that been named anything before Jack?
Not that I'm aware of. So there's a plaque that's outside of
I
there.
think it's just a weight room.
Yeah, there's a plaque that's out there that indicates that, and I went back to find out when they actually appropriated that room to him. And since then, there's been nothing, and if there was something prior to that, I wouldn't have that knowledge.
Is it the same footprint, like same?
Yeah, same size, same footprint, just different configuration and different way that they're able to use it. The flooring's been shored up, obviously. They were able to put up the different mirrors, the paint job that's been put in there, and then just the equipment itself is fantastic.
Almost made me want to work out.
Almost.
Me too.
You resisted, though.
I was able to hold off.
Just extreme.
Okay, Al?
I move that the former weight room be renamed the Jack Fletcher Fitness Center at Chelmsford High School.
Second.
Any discussions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, 4-0.
Great, so don't forget, there's that ribbon cutting ceremony that was sent out. Did you receive your emails?
I saw that. It was
Right, so
in
they
the
would
day,
like to-
during the day, though, right?
A week from
It is
Monday.
during the day, unfortunately. I know it's kind of difficult
Yeah.
for some people.
No,
No, that one's more in the morning-ish, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's 10 a.m. on
Yeah.
Monday, the 19th.
So if you don't have class, Donna, you can run them. Okay. All right.
Next item this evening, request from Joanna. Would you like to handle this one?
In your packet is a new job description for a school nutrition services driver. And we'd like you to take a look and review the job description. We'd like to post this as a part-time hourly position, so it would not be eligible for health insurance business benefits. Hourly rate between $14 and $18 an hour, depending on the candidate and the experience. And it would be funded from the Food Service Revolving Fund. As a reminder, you had approved, and we've been talking about food service, the high school commissary prepares the meals and then delivers them to each of the elementary schools, so this driver would be doing that.
How many hours a week do they think they would?
We'd want to keep it under 19, and that's because of the benefits eligible.
Don't let them drive through the center.
No, I know.
It's been busy lately.
It has been.
Okay, anybody have any questions on this?
No. Straightforward. And you said it's part-time, right? So there's no help?
Correct. Yep.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the posting of the position School Nutrition Services / driver.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0.
Thank you.
Next item, I just have a couple of quick updates for you on ongoing projects. And I forget who had asked me, but the ceiling tiles, the acoustical tiles did come in from Parker. And over the last couple of weekends, the custodians have, because they're going in for basketball anyway, so they've been able to start to hang the tiles. If you recall, we had done one test room last summer, I believe. To date, they've finished another 3 over the last couple of weekends. Brian Curley anticipates between now and the Christmas break, they'll be able to finish the remaining 12 rooms. If it doesn't happen before then, because it'll be a break, he anticipates being able to get those 12 done by then. But the custodians are actually doing a really nice job. They created some templates, so when the tiles do go up on the ceilings, everything is very uniform and looks good. There is a noticeable difference with the tiles up as opposed to not being up, so. So that is in the works and moving along. I'll just give you a final update when the project is concluded. Second one, in conversations with Donna, we were trying to figure out just a way to be able to, kind of notify people who would call a school during a school vacation week, whether it was say Christmas or summer or whatnot, and not be able to get someone. Certainly our admin are in and out during vacation weeks, they typically work, but if you don't happen to get the person you want, what would be a way to communicate kind of the chain of command of who people should reach out to? So we kind of batted this around a little bit internally. It's very difficult to, say, change voice prompts on voicemails and things along those lines. So the easiest thing that we came up with, and what we're going to kind of try this upcoming Christmas break, is when you come to our website, like if we have a cancellation or a snow day, there's a way to program it so that the pop-up comes up and you have to kind of acknowledge it. So we'll just have this little pop-up come up, and so I just did a draft of what we'll do for the message for this coming Christmas break, to basically say if you've contacted people at your schools, that they're closed until whatever such and such date is, please contact the admin office here, and we'll give our telephone number for people to call for assistance. And then whoever they happen to call can help them out. So we're going to give that a try. Hopefully this will work to at least give people some direction so that they're not wondering who to call if they can't get a response from the school and they're inquiring about it. Is that good, Donna?
Perfect. Okay, all right. Okay, no field trips?
No, you know what, we thought we were going to have one come through, and then it didn't come.
Okay.
So we have no field trips to approve this evening, and we will we'll have a few, I believe, at the next meeting in November.
Anybody have any liaison reports? No?
I had high school PTO last night, and the most intense discussion had nothing to do with the high school. No, a number of the parents have younger kids, and I think this has come up at council schools, but I just thought I'd bring it up again. They're concerned about typing skills with the kids taking the exams. That there are places where the kids are receiving it, some of the younger kids, and then the picture that I got, which is probably someone, there's a gap where some of the kids didn't have an opportunity to learn keyboard. And obviously, it's not as much of a problem at the high school, but anyway, they were concerned that, you know, in part of the testing where they have to create and type at the same time, that might be a problem. So you probably know.
There is a typing program that they receive in their computer classes. Now, if they weren't with us as students, then, you know,
Okay.
that's a different story, but there is there's definitely programming that happens for them to be able to do that.
I didn't have the knowledge to.
I think they say there's a gap, like they do some early on, then they don't do it again till they get up to high school, and so they don't really
Yeah, it's not a
practice.
formalized
Right, they
typing
don't really, so they're
class,
not really
but-
practicing, and so nowadays, everything's touchscreen, so by the time they have to do this, they're all.
Yeah, we haven't seen any issues for students taking the test, even your younger students, your grade 3 and 4 students. So they'd have to give me a little bit more detail around what they believe the
Well,
gap is.
one mother said a child went down 20 points or something, I mean.
I think we heard that same story.
Yeah, I did. I heard that from a couple parents.
It's just something that you should be aware of, because, I'm not exaggerating, we talked about after prom breakfast, but outside of that, that took the most time of anything.
And they weren't sure if it was, could be attributed to the fact that it had gone to the typing, to the.
Well, gone from paper to.
Yeah, the only two grade levels that didn't take it online was grades 3 and 6. So the other ones we've been slowly implementing it, so we'd have to see, but it also could be, I mean, the standards obviously get a little bit more complicated as the students get older, so, I mean, if they see something like that, it could just be a downward trend of where they are, but there is gonna be some bumps in the road as we start taking the testing. I just think that we'd have to have a little bit more data that it's around typing skills. I know that the teachers will prep the students ahead of time, just to make sure that it's not like the first time they've been in front of a computer for a while when they're taking the test. And our students are using the iReady program, so iReady would have the typing pieces in there, and we're not seeing any gaps there. But, I mean, we can certainly take a peek at it, but I think we just need a little bit more information as to what the gap could possibly be, and we can certainly let you know what the programming is, typewriting without tears.
Yeah, and I think if we go to the one-on-one computer program that we're proposing, that'll alleviate that a little bit too. Now they're always gonna have something in front of them, eventually. as we go through
The
it.
other thing that I had, we had Sue Zakara from Merrimack Valley Food Bank speak at Rotary today, and I was unaware, but they have programs with both elementary and secondary schools to provide food for the kids to take home. I mean, it's you're probably more aware of this, but there's a number of elementary schools and some secondary. And I'm not talking about, some of the schools you saw publicized, like they have a food pantry at the school. This is different. They provide the foods for the kids to take home. And I just thought,
Friday, they pack them back.
because of the expanding number of kids that we have, combined homeless and under the level of school lunch qualification and so forth, that it might be worth having a conversation.
Sure.
So I can give
I can
you.
reach out to her.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, the amount of food and the number of programs that they run. I didn't have a clue. It's huge. And it just is getting bigger because, anyway. But I thought it's something to look at, because particularly where we have, food going out to the elementary schools and so forth, it might not be hard to plug in. I don't know, but anyway. Dennis, if you want to give that.
If I could just
Yeah.
quickly put out that the rugby guys posted on Twitter, and they're really excited. They took a picture out in the hallway, and it has
Oh, really?
6 likes already. So nice.
Can I continue with good news?
Modern.
I'm serious. Now that we're talking about all this food, I forgot about Nancy Antolini. She served over 500 people today.
Wow.
Between 2 sites. So I just wanted to make sure. Maybe by the end I'll be done. I'm just gonna roll this all out, just keep going, but, since we were talking about food, it popped in. I mean, and she doesn't even bat an eyelash, she just goes, she takes care of it. And then I wanted to note too, that when I walked in, into the cafeteria, they've been doing the hydroponics, the seating. a week and a half. These things, the growth is unbelievable. So that was just really interesting
What
to
are we
see. That was
growing?
just,
I know.
there,
New industry.
no, that's down in the growing room in the science department.
Just thought I'd check.
No, we're just growing the vegetables. You take a peek if you're by.
Good.
I found that to be amazing in a week and a half, that the growth that happened for these vegetables. It's great.
This is through the science department.
No, that is through the food service department.
Are they coordinating with the science department? Because I know
They
that was an
are.
interest of theirs last year.
They are. So John Morris is very involved in that, in the sustainable farming piece. So they're trying to implement that into the environmental science programming, and he's been working with Nancy. So just, amazing things. I think I'll stop with my good news at this point.
Any other liaison?
I know I'm not a liaison, but can I give a
Yeah,
quick one? All
absolutely.
right. I had a chance last night to attend South Rose PTO meeting. I reached out to the PTOs and just asked them to invite me to at least, to their schedule. So I'm going to try to hit at least 1 or 2 per year, just to kind of get a feeling for things. But I know we talked a little bit earlier about the Boo Bash at Bayham was very successful. Earlier that day, it was. Earlier that day, South Row had, I think it was their 46th annual Pumpkin Fair, which was hugely successful. I had not been able to make them over the last couple of years, so I was able to make this one for the first time. But the weather couldn't have been better, very well attended. The parents really just do a tremendous amount of work for the program. They have their first movie night, which is sold out, coming up this Friday. But they're doing a lot of programming. So that was nice to see them in action.
My wife actually ran into you.
Was she there? Oh, I saw her at
Boo Bash,
the Boo Bash, yeah.
She said, I had one of the other kids, so I couldn't attend.
Yeah.
So she took a bunch of pictures of you.
I didn't recognize your daughter because she was dressed up.
She
in
looks
a-
just like me, though.
Well, I know, but she had a costume on. So then with your wife was out of context, and, but we had a great day that night. Yeah.
It's always a great event.
Right, any new items anybody has? I just want to mention, we got an email today about a tri-board meeting in December, so if you want to throw that on your calendars, I think it's the 10th, here, 7 o'clock.
Monday the 10th, it'll be here.
Okay. All right, doesn't look like we're going to have any more public comment, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.